Welcome to AIS 2013. I'm Tom Cadet, Product Manager for Megarade and Nitro Megarade. Presenting with me today is Mark Michelon, who's Product Manager for Silicon Storage Division. Today's topic is enabling a new performance class of storage with 12 gig SAAS. The agenda for today is, why is 12 gig SAAS important? What is the industry status of 12 gig SAAS? What are some real-world performance benefits that you'll see in deploying 12 gig SAAS systems? LSI's leadership position in 12 gig SAAS. And then lastly, we'll summarize the tech showcase highlights and summarize it for you. The world is changing. Data is accumulating at a staggering rate. We take more pictures, and our online transactions generate more and more data every day. The industry needs to store more and more data. We've all become very impatient. We want our data back in real time. As an industry, we need to source data more quickly. And lastly, the ability to extract business intelligence in real time has financial reward. Analyzing more data in real time is one more thing that 12 gig SAAS can do for us. The need to store more data, analyze more data, and source data more quickly is ubiquitous across all market segments. The departmental and robo and SMB, with their increased uptime and limited CapEx budgets, can benefit from all of these. The enterprise data center is growing very quickly, and performance bottlenecks are emerging everywhere. 12 gig SAAS can solve many of these issues. And lastly, the hyperscale data center, experiencing massive server scale-out and requiring big data analysis, will also benefit from the ability to store more data, analyze more data, and source that data very quickly. 12 gig SAAS brings value across all of these market segments. There are many companies launching 12 gig SAAS solutions based on LSI silicon. Listed are Cisco, IBM, Intel, Fujitsu, just to name a few, and of course our sponsors in the tech show are Supermicro and IBM. We're excited to have them in the tech showcase. We're going to let Mark talk about some of the benefits and real-world applications and usage cases.
So why is it important to switch to 12 gig SAAS? We all know that 12 is faster than 6 or 12 is better than 6, but there's an underlying thing that's more important here. When you're buying today's new servers, you're paying for a PCI Gen 3 subsystem. And that subsystem connects everything. It connects the processor to the memory and also to the storage. And our objective with 12 gig SAAS is to fill that pipe, fill the PCI Gen 3 pipe at its full bandwidth, which is about 6,400 megabytes per second. And with 6 gig SAAS, you simply can't do it. All my examples here are assuming 8 lanes on the SAAS side and 8 lanes on the PCI side. And the bandwidth available with 6 gig SAAS is only about 4,400 megabytes a second. And so there's just no way that you're going to fulfill a PCI Gen 3 pipe with that amount of storage or that connection to storage. So what 12 gig SAAS does is widen the storage pipe even wider than the PCI Gen 3 pipe, and it allows you to fully utilize 6,400 megabytes per second and feed your applications with the data that they need. This slide shows one of our real-world examples that we're demonstrating in the tech showcase this week. We're running an industry standard benchmark, TPCH, and we can switch between two topologies. One is 6 gig and one is 12 gig. In the 6 gig topology, the benchmark is able to support 50 active users. And by switching to 12 gig, that number jumps up to 80. So this is an example of 12 gig SAAS showing real-world value to your customers. This is the same benchmark, a little bit more information. The 12 gig provides a 60% increase over the 6 gig example. TPCH is what we're running. Also, the completion time of the jobs is reduced. So this gives you more tasks accomplished in the same server than you can do with 6 gig. Providing better utilization, improved total cost of ownership. And this benchmark is applicable to any database that you might be running, MySQL, Oracle, etc. Another example that we have on the tech showcase is Hadoop in a 12 gig topology. So this is a big data example. The picture here shows exactly what we have, a couple of servers and a large number of drives. And the graph in the lower right is a completion time of one of the Hadoop benchmarks called DFSIO. And essentially what this does is runs a series of file creation activities and then times them. So the unit across the bottom is time, those are seconds, and the blue line is the 12 gig line. And so you can see the activity goes higher, so the megabytes per second throughput goes higher, but more importantly, the time that it takes to complete the task is less. And so what this translates into is faster sorting of that Hadoop data for your application. So how does this one play out? The MapReduce jobs complete about 25% faster using 12 gig than with 6 gig. Again, total cost of ownership is improved and better overall utilization of the server and the infrastructure is provided by 12 gig SAAS. So what are the value props of LSI's 12 gig SAAS solutions? We are the market leader. We've been in SAAS and RAID technology for a number of years. We are also first to market with 12 gig SAAS and PCI Gen 3. You'll see solutions coming from us in the near future that support MVM and eventually SOP as well. We have the broadest product line in the industry with world-class performance and unique knowledge and insight into what our customers are doing with all these solutions. So I want to get to a little bit more detail on how this works. How are we utilizing all this 12 gig SAAS data and providing these industry-leading solutions today? So on the top is the 6 gig example. One question we get asked a lot is, well, how many drives does it take? And the answer is that depends. So we've listed a couple different examples here. To fill this 4,400 megabyte per second pipe, you could do that with 8 6 gig SSDs today. If you're using spinning drives, it takes about 19 SAS or 26 SATA to aggregate this bandwidth. So that's obviously an expanded topology in those cases. And again, in that situation, even though you have all those drives at 6 gig, you're not effectively utilizing your PCI Gen 3 bandwidth. So the pipe is capable of 6,400 megabytes a second, but you're only putting about 4,400 megabytes per second into it. And so it's an underutilized situation on the host interface and not optimal. So in the bottom, we're showing a 12 gig SAS topology. And again, in this case, we are able to fully utilize the 6,400 megabytes per second, but what does it take to get there? If you want to use 12 gig SSDs, it takes about 8. If you want to use 6 gig SSDs with Databolt, it takes about 12. And if you want to use spinning disks, it takes 28 SAS or 37 SATA hard drives to fill this pipe. So what does this do for you? Again, in addition to just the raw numbers, you get more users, more transactions per second in your database, more data mined in a big data application, or more objects processed. So how does this happen? I'm going to get into the details of the unique LSI technology on top of 12 gig SAS that lets us accumulate all this data. How do we utilize the full 12 gig bandwidth even with 6 gig devices attached? It's an LSI unique piece of technology known as Databolt. This is above and beyond the SAS standard. So it fully utilizes the SAS standard, but we've gone above and beyond that and created this bandwidth matching or bandwidth aggregation technology. It's in our expander, and it consists of a set of buffers. And these buffers allow the expander to talk to a connected device at its native rate, so that could be 6 gig or 3 gig, and talk to the controller at its native rate, which is 12 gig. And the buffers are optimally sized so that we never underrun or overrun the buffer, and essentially fully utilize the 12 gig path between the expander and the controller. If you look at the bottom of the picture, I have a diagram here where the first thing we show is SAS rate matching. So this is what the SAS standard specifies that you do if you encounter a situation where you have a 6 gig device connected to a 12 gig device. Essentially what you do is you end up throwing away every other D word on the wire because one of the devices is slower than the other, and that's how you match speeds. What we've done is come up with this buffer technology that allows us to fully utilize all the bandwidth on the wire by talking to each device at its own native rate and then buffering appropriately. Here's an example of what this looks like in terms of your utilized bandwidth on the wire. So what we're showing here are SAS writes and SAS reads, and our throughput that we can obtain in the topology I just showed on the previous slide. And the blue line is traditional SAS. So this would be with Databolt turned off, or in a 6 gig topology, you max out at just over 4,000 megabytes per second. Then we take the same topology, turn on data bolt, and you can see a 2,000 megabyte per second difference. And what happens here is the limiter in the whole topology becomes PCI Gen 3. And you're fully filling that PCI Gen 3 pipe and getting the most value out of your new server topology. So this is a summary of the products we have available today that are 12 gig capable and have this data bolt technology built in. We have ROC and IO controllers and SAAS expanders all released and shipping.
And of course, based upon those ROCs and IOCs, we have a broad spectrum of SAAS, 12 gig SAAS host bus adapters in 8 and 16 port solutions, as well as a standard complement of MegaRAID boards in 4 and 8 port configurations. All of these are either shipping today or scheduled to ship in the next quarter. So let's turn quickly to the technology showcase here at AIS. There's lots of highlights and lots of things you should be sure to see when you are there. First, we'll start with one of our sponsors, IBM. We're happy to have them in the showcase, demoing some of their new server systems, both of which contain LSI MegaRAID 12 gig SAAS solutions. First is the IBM System X. In there is a 12 gig SAAS ROM-B or RAID-on motherboard from LSI. Also in the showcase is the IBM NextScale system, also including an LSI MegaRAID controller installed to service the disk drives. Both of these can be seen in the AIS showcase in the IBM booth. Also in the AIS showcase is a Supermicro booth. This is a nice combination of server on the left, the Supermicro 1027 with 12 gig SAAS ROC and MegaRAID. To complement it is an enclosure with a 12 gig SAAS expander. Here we have an end-to-end 12 gig solution, fully implementing data bolt technology. Not only are these in the standalone booth, but they're also integral to our what we're calling our super demo or the rack scale architecture demo. So be sure to stop and look at the Supermicro systems in the AIS Tech Showcase. Lastly is the super demo or the rack scale architecture demo configuration. There are other points to this, specifically Synchro, where we discuss sharing and scaling across many servers. But for the purposes of this demo, I want to point out that 12 gig SAAS is the cornerstone to the rack scale architecture. 20 servers, 10 JBOD enclosures, a very large SAAS switch, which interconnects all of these systems. All of these are 12 gig systems. This demo is a great example of how 12 gig can not only accomplish higher performance levels, but also is a first step in the direction of scaling across the rack and sharing storage consistent with our Synchro product line. Let's wrap it up. Last year we told you 12 gig SAAS was coming. It's here. We've shown you the products and told you when they'll be available, if they aren't available already today, which many of them are. Today we showed you what it delivers in the real world. We saw several showcase examples and several demos that demonstrate the real world performance advantages of LSI's 12 gig SAAS. So what's next? It's up to you. Go to the showcase and see for yourself LSI's 12 gig SAAS products and our customers who are successfully integrating them to solve real world solutions. Thanks for your time today.